Yeah, my name's Mitch Bechard and I'm the Glenfiddich ambassador for the Western USA. Well, like I say, whiskey can be made anywhere in the world. It can be made from any ingredient. So let's take India for example. Indian whiskey is some of the biggest selling in the world, made from molasses. When we're talking about bourbon, bourbon can be made anywhere in the US. Has to have at least a minimum of 51% corn in the makeup of it. When we're talking about single malt whiskey, it can only be malted barley that we use, and obviously made and matured in Scotland. With blends, we can also use different types of grain in there as well. So a typical makeup of a blended whiskey will be 60% grain to around about 40% single malts that go in to make that up. You know, we talk about the Irish being the first ones to start off the whiskey category. We believe it started off over in Ireland, then came to Scotland in 1494. But Irish whiskies are fantastic. We've got some great ones out there. Within our portfolio, we recently acquired Tullamore Dew, which is our Irish whiskey, and we're looking at building a distillery in Ireland for the first time in, I believe it's around about 30 to 40 years. So that's underway right now. But for me, the main difference when we talk about Irish and Scottish whiskey is Irish tends to be a little bit lighter. The reason for that is predominantly in Ireland, they will triple distill their whiskey, whereas in Scotland, we double distill it. So the more times you distill something, the smoother it becomes. Also, Irish tend not to use any peat in the drying of their barley. So you get some Scotch whiskies that are very smoky. Glenfiddich isn't one of them, but if we look towards the western side of Scotland, particularly over in Islay, the traditional ones there are going to be very smoky, and that's because they use a lot of peat in the drying of the barley. Predominantly, Irish whiskies won't use any peat in the drying of the barley, so you won't get that smoky characteristic coming through. Peat's it's a fuel source that we used in Scotland back in the day. I mean, we didn't have gas, we didn't have coal, so what we used to do is just basically dig up the earth, and peat it's basically compost under the ground that's been there for hundreds of years, heather, soil, everything that's been there. So we dig it up, put it to the side, we let it dry, and then we put it into the fire. And what we do is we put it into the fire and it creates smoke. The smoke attaches itself to the barley that we're drying at the time. The more peat that you add to the fire, the more smoky your whiskey, your Scotch whiskey is going to be. I think it's a running joke in the industry. So with Irish whiskey being triple distilled and Scottish being double distilled, over in Scotland we always say that the Irish do it 3 times because they need 3 times to get it right. That's a little bit of friendly banter, as there's always been between the Irish and Scottish.